Casting is the show. Harry and Oscar, they don't even know. Hey,
So what a great theme song. Yeah, I love it.
Always, yeah, behind the scenes, in the scenes. Here we are with episode 17 with Lacey Cruse joining us. How's everybody doing? Fresh off 4th of July weekend. And you got to get to this. I've been waiting to hear about this all week, so I've been sitting here holding this. You breezed through it on the text messages, but you were in Table Rock?
Yeah, I very intentionally kind of put my phone away as much as possible. And didn't do much on the social medias. But yeah, so basically my band Orphan John and the Abandoned, or blues band. Orphan John's out of Bakersfield. We actually had him on the podcast.
Yeah, he was actually on
too long ago.
Blah, blah, blah.
So yeah, we go out to Shell Knob and we play on the SS Dockside, which this is a floating restaurant. They can't serve you whiskey because it's technically registered as a boat.
It's a vessel.
It's a vessel.
And whiskey is the only thing they can't serve?
They can do sake and wine and beer.
Poor whiskey.
Weird.
Poor whiskey drinkers.
What a weird line to draw.
Yeah.
Like you can have sake, rice wine, but
Right.
just thanks for letting us have that, I guess, and beer, but no wine. Well, what about vodka and shit? None of that either?
No.
Oh, at least
No hard liquor. It was just,
okay,
that way. So we're hanging out there with our beautiful hosts, John and Lynn Carithers. Great people, and so we're riding around their boat on the lake, and it was a beautiful 4-day weekend. Put up at a nice resort, and we set up everything to play. We were supposed to play on Sunday, and we set up everything to play, and then the rains just come out of nowhere. And we're like, okay, it came out of nowhere. It can't stick around very long, so we hang out. And we're trying to protect our gear, and then the stuff just starts coming in sideways out.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And because we're on a floating vessel, the winds have the whole thing.
Going
So
really,
like this.
Yeah, you're sitting there.
The light
wine bottling.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're on rum.
Yeah. So all of our gear gets wet. All of our gear gets wet. We all get soaked. We're just pissed.
Is
at
your
that
gear
point.
okay?
It's like, this sucks. Yeah, the gear's okay. We fired it back up the next day, which was actually on 4th of July. So it actually all kind of panned out.
So you had to sit through some bullshit, but then you actually got to play on the.
It was frustrating, and it was awesome, because we're spending all day like hanging out in the boat and a really nice house with some really cool people, and just kind of relaxing vacation style. And then we go to work, we get shut down, so that was super frustrating. But the show went on. We all got to play the SS floating dockside.
So how'd it go? How was the show? Pretty cool.
Yeah, really awesome, man.
Like a cool venue though for a floating vessel.
Yeah, you play out to this dock that's like full of boats.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And you get done with the song, and then here's the people here that are cheering, and then there's like people out honking.
Are they like tied together?
Some or a lot of them. They do a lot of, because I've been to Beaver and Table Rock. I got to go there luckily.
Where they'll tie off together.
I had a bunch of rich friends growing up. So you have like clusters of boats where like 5 boats are tied together, then they're anchored, and there'll be some by themselves.
Yeah.
And they float barges out there and shoot fireworks off of them and stuff. They do some cool shit out there.
It was honestly
people got big bucks out there.
It was about the best fireworks show I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
and that was just like the homeowners association doing it. But I was like, okay, dude, that's like a $30,000
Yeah,
show.
they go hard, man. They go really nice out there. They're sitting on $200,000 boats. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, multi-million-dollar houses.
Yeah, some of them got 2 or 3 fucking boats, and those houses up in the hills, I mean, you just ride by them all day, and they're up with crazy rafters and shit on them. I mean,
it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's cool.
Really cool stuff. But before we go too much further, I'd like to show a graphic, show you guys what
check
shows
out
are
local
happening
shows
this week. And that's the shows for this week. It happens fast.
Hopefully it was better than last week's graphic. I mean, there was like no shows
I was like,
posted for 4.
where's it at?
Yeah.
I want to see it. I want to know where I should go if I have in all my free time.
Well, yeah, and I'll remind you, just like I'm telling you, every show that we come out with every week has, in the first like 5 minutes, we run a graphic of what's going to be at all the venues.
Oh, cool.
So we we look on Amp Live, we look on a couple other places and try to find all the stuff and post it all on there.
Yeah.
So like right at the first heading of our stuff, it shows you what's going on.
So hopefully you guys got the one at Wave on Thursday. It's
Is it this Thursday?
It's this Thursday at Wave.
Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually opening the show. So you asked me earlier if I'm still doing
nice.
music.
There we go.
And I love playing that venue because the sound, it just makes me feel like professional.
The
Right?
place is cool.
They're legit.
Yeah.
It's for all of the money is going to go towards women's rights, and so it's in support of that. It's in support of the constitutional amendment that's coming up, and that's what it's designed to be in support of. So I'm excited to be playing. I haven't even figured out my set list. I gotta do that last minute. I have some sort of protest songs that I might sing. I don't know.
Well, to be fair, you're a pretty busy person, running again for re-election, so that's got to take up like all your time.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the 4th of July, in a parade. That was pretty crazy. We had trying to get people to come and organizing volunteers and, handling everybody's schedules is a lot. And, the banner was in one car and, we were at a different location. And so we were like unrolling the banner in the middle of the parade. But it was insane. And my competitor, the guy who's running against me, which I will not talk and name his name, but he had his whole church there. And so he had like
Sounds about right.
100 people, it seemed like.
Right.
And it's just me with my 10 volunteers. But we were the coolest ones. We were handing out sunflowers. I went and, bought every single fake sunflower at Walmart the night before. And I cut them. Like there was one strand was $1, but you could cut it and it made 4. And so I was handing them out, and it was just fun. It was fun to see people's reactions to receiving something that they could keep and stick around. And it was something, a lot of people smiled. It was crazy. Like the men would reach out and they would grab it and then they would give it to their wife. And it was so cute.
Oh, you had a bunch of cool little moments then.
Yeah. But
awesome.
I mean, it was difficult to really celebrate this 4th of July for me because when you think about independence and you think about freedoms, and that was really the hard thing to celebrate. I didn't set off one firecracker, and in fact, that night, the county just moved offices to the Ruffin building, and so I went to my office on the 6th floor and decorated. Like I painted the walls, and I looked, but it was kind of cool because you could see the fireworks on the 6th floor of the city.
You got a nice
So it was
Get up above them a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, but yeah, it's a lot to run a campaign and be a commissioner at the same time. Parade after parade. I mean, tomorrow's a parade, right? So
you're District 4's county commissioner. How often do you have to run to re-elect for that?
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years? And so you're at the end of your term, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe it's been 4 years already.
So what made you jump in to run for this in the first place? Have you been in political office before this?
No, God, no. It's crazy. I got into this because I'm a musician, and I used to go to open mics, back in the day when I first got to town, and I met this guy named John who was at an open mic, and he turned out to date the woman who was organizing the first women's march. So when Trump got elected in 2017 January, it was like, let's march. And so she calls me up out of the blue and she's like, hey, do you want to play Aretha Franklin's Respect and Helen Reddy's I Am Woman? And I'm like, of course I do. And I'm like, what am I doing it for? And she's like, well, we're gonna have this march. I'm like, okay, sweet, count me in. So I learned these songs. I learned a couple of other songs, and the day of the march, I get there, and there's like 4,000 people. I mean, it was crazy. We were all at the Keeper of the Plains. I mean, it was huge. It really, really was. Yeah. So somebody brought a ladder, and it was like the crowd, was waiting for someone to lead them, right? And so I got up on the ladder, and I just started, I'd written a chant the night before, and it was like, we're going to show them what we can do. We're going to show them what we can do. We're going to show them what we can do on the streets of Wichita. And so I just repeated that because it was simple, and people were singing it, and it didn't really take off very well, but I tried. So, and then I kind of got down off the ladder, and there was chanting and everything. And so I remember it so vividly. I got down off the ladder. There were a couple of other, bullhorn speeches, and then it was time to march. And so I with my guitar strapped across me, it was like the whole crowd just sort of parted. like, kind of like the Red Sea. And I walked through, and the organizers, held the banner behind me, and we just walked to the city hall. And then when we got there, they didn't really have anybody to be the MC. Like, they had totally forgotten to do that.
Oh, no.
So
I was
this is
like,
pretty unorganized.
Yeah.
We're here, though.
But
we're here.
There.
Yeah, getting the people there is the toughest.
There are a lot of us.
I mean, getting the people there is the fucking toughest part.
Well, and they did have a list of speakers. They just didn't really have somebody to
move
introduce them, right? Like, who's up next, right?
Yeah, and keep us going.
Yeah.
Stage manager.
Yeah, you do.
So,
and MC is important.
I just kind of took that role on just because I'm pretty comfortable in front of a microphone, in front of a stage, and I just kind of fell into it. And so I introduced all these people, and there was this one guy who was a real friendly. He was on our side, but he seemed like he was aggressive, and so I kind of calmed him down and got the crowd back, and just managing the crowd and getting them pumped up in between each speech. And so then after that happened, it was like everybody just went their own way. It was like a balloon just popped, right? It was so full of energy, and then it was done. And the balloon popped, it fell to the ground, and we all went to our own places. And then another year rolls around, and they're like, we're doing the march again. I said, okay, all right. And so they asked me to be the actual MC of the 2018 march. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So then they gave me the list of women, and I just researched them, right? Lavonta Williams, 30 years in education, city councilwoman, 2-term, she's an incredible leader here in this community. Mm-hmm. So her and Karen Countryman Roseworm, who has been fighting human trafficking. I mean, and the list went on to about 8 other speakers. And my 8-year-old daughter, who's now 13, was there at the time. And, in between each speech, we were like, hear our vote, hear our vote. And we said it 4 times, I think. And after one of the speeches, I'm like standing there just kind of in awe of this woman and her speech, and something just clicked for me. And I knew I wasn't going to let that energy fade. So after the march was done, I called all the organizers, and I was like, hey, let's meet, let's eat a meal together. And so I made a big pot of taco soup. It's freaking cheap. Feeds a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
Yeah.
And it warms up really well the next day, right? Yeah. Leftovers are awesome. Yeah, for real. And then I bought some cheap wine, really cheap boxed wine. And I'm like down in these glasses, because I'm all excited because we're going to change the world, right? And after about 4 glasses, I'm like, I'm going to run for governor. Like, I'm going hard.
I love that you're going right to fucking governor.
Right to the top.
Yeah, I mean, fucking why not swing for the fences?
It was the wine talking, right? I wasn't serious at all.
But at least when you backed off, you still had something there.
Well, it was crazy because we all went our separate ways, and then about 2 days or a week later, Amber Kate calls me and she's like, well, how soon are you going to run for office? And I was like, that was the wine talking. What are you talking about? And she goes, and I was like, well, I don't even know what office I would run for, because let me just shoot you straight. Like, I only registered as a Democrat because my mom and I totally didn't get along, and I did everything in spite of her, and I went against her. She's a staunch Republican. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. I was like practically Bible beat my whole life.
You know those values.
Yes,
you know what they are.
Yeah, in Parsons, Kansas.
Yeah,
so
that's where
like,
you're from,
I mean, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, church camps, like
that sounds so
church.
That sounds so.
And so I do consider myself a Christian, and I think I have a really firm foundation in my beliefs, and I do appreciate that. But as we see now, it just seems like it's going a little far. So anyway, back to the story. I hadn't really ever voted other than presidential elections. I'd never voted in a special election, never voted in a local election. Like, I just wasn't involved politically. Yeah. And so then I started researching the county commission, and I didn't even know what a frickin' county commissioner did. I had no clue.
Pretty much everybody on the show is waiting for you to tell us what it is.
Okay, so I know. So I looked up, I went to the website, and they had, since 1953, they had commissioners listed, right? And I was like scrolling, I'm like, oh my God, are there any women here at all? So I did what any normal human would do, and I pulled up Excel, and I made an Excel spreadsheet, right? And I was like, let me just see, because I needed to see the disparity. And when it came down to
When you
it,
put it on a list like that, you really see
it was like, there were, and I've now since gone all the way back to 1870 when this community was founded. And there has 10% of women, so 90% of men have held power as county commissioners, which isn't unusual, right? Because we see that reflected in other state governments and other offices. Yeah. So without even knowing what a county commissioner did, I was like, that's what I'm doing, because that's where women need to be. And I just launched a campaign. I was super underestimated. I knocked thousands of doors on my own. Like
you canvassed, basically?
I quit my job.
Great grassroots campaign.
Well, canvassing is the hard work, man. Going and talking to your constituents and trying to earn a vote.
It's fun though, and it's energizing because you meet somebody where they're at on their porch, and that's really how you design what you're going to be running on.
Well, that's where you're going to see problems straight up. If you go into your district, knock 100 doors, you're going to have real percentages about what you saw there. You know what I mean? Like,
real concerns of your people and your community.
Yeah.
Or stuff they like, too. It's not always shit they hate.
Well,
that's true.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, a lot of people, just as you were talking about, people want to know what county commissioners do.
Yeah.
There's so much confusion between what a city council person does, what a county commissioner does, what a state house rep does, what a state senator does, what a congressman does. It's very confusing. And so county commissioners handle, I like to break it down to three things: public works, public safety, and public health. And I think everybody got a taste, really, of what, we're also the Board of Health. So during the pandemic, we were the ones that were, I voted for a stay-at-home order, and as much as I didn't want to do that, that's what the medical community was telling me to do.
That's what we were all being told.
We didn't know what was happening, right? We didn't know.
They weren't giving us no clear information. They were hiding too much of the shit.
Well, and I think like going back, looking at it now, we could do a lot of different things. But I stand firm in how I voted. I stand firm in how I was a solid supporter of science.
You interpreted the facts that were available to you
at the time,
and you made the best decision you could.
Yeah.
And real human beings you're assessing that stuff on the run, man. We don't, especially in an epidemic that we had no fucking idea information was changing every day. We didn't have a clue what
every day.
You can only act with what you have. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And especially when you have a government, the federal government, being really wishy-washy about what the facts are.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they were not willing to tell us anything. They were being really back and forth on shit.
And this whole stay at home and all, the bars and all the things that were shut down, it was like, it was really difficult to separate my personal, life from being a representative who is here and this is my charge, right? I'm sitting in this seat to make these decisions, no matter the personal consequence to me. And that was really difficult. Like I
remember some of this. Yeah.
I got banned from a couple of bars. They
wouldn't let you in.
They were
because you voted a stay-at-home order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because business owners take that shit personally, man. Sometimes.
Well,
it wasn't a personal decision. Is I think what I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying? You have to make the best decision for your county because that's who you represent.
And sometimes, unfortunately, in an epidemic, we don't know what the best for the people is not always the best financially for the businesses and stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The service industry took it on the fucking chin.
Oh, man.
COVID. They really did.
Yeah, and that's why when we got that $100 million from the CARES Act, I was like, let's put this in the hands of people. We weren't able to give out a lot of money, but we were able to dish out, I think it was $5,000 grants to folks, and a lot of the social service sector was able to receive some money. We gave out a ton of that money, and I pushed really hard for that because I've never been just a gig worker, but I know a ton of gig workers.
Oh, yeah.
I have waited tables myself to get myself through college. So I want to say that it was very difficult being a musician and knowing how hard musicians work, and that's their livelihood is playing shows.
Yeah.
And it makes my stomach hurt to think about it again. So.
Well, hopefully we don't have to worry about that. For
I
a
know.
While, you know, hopefully
Yeah.
we don't know.
It's kind of seemed like
Next
we're building an immunity to it. I mean, it's waving through again right now, but we're
It's
handling
human
it
nature,
better.
man. We're going to tackle it.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. Hopefully.
but it's
So
hard.
yeah, and so the other things that we run the largest county jail, right? We the sheriff is part of the county, right? All of our tax dollars go to funding EMS services, funding our public health department, funding. We manage the waterway, right? We manage that with the city, the flood control. Like there are so many. I mean, we have animal control. We have, environmental waste. Like we just do a lot of things that really goes unnoticed because it's done. So let's say, for instance, one thing I thought was really interesting. I went to the health department. I'm touring every place, and they're like, and this is our STD room. And
STD room? That's a hell of a room.
well,
name.
they're well.
So
this is
let's skip it.
I'm not going in there.
This was like we
We've been
have
dodging this shit healthy for years.
well, we have people who are just tracking STDs.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes up with chlamydia or all the freaking STDs, we have people who are calling partners, right, to make sure there's no outbreak, like syphilis and all these kinds of things. So that's what your health department does. I mean, they're here for public health to make sure that we are all healthy and have access to, immunizations for children at schools. And, we just do a ton of stuff. Our EMS and our fire district, those professionals are, I've ridden with those guys and gals, and it's intense. I mean, think about rolling up on all of people's worst days. 911 operators, my God, they got somebody's worst tragedy in one ear, and then they're dispatching people in the other ear, and they're trying to keep people, alive and well, and like getting help
And
on the
type
way.
all that shit too at the same time.
Yes.
And they're typing it all.
Yes, and you know what? They don't get paid shit to do it.
No, $15, $16 an hour.
Right,
like,
and that's
shit.
crazy. So
And they're crisis management people from like crazy. Like,
Yeah.
They don't get that, none of that money.
Yeah.
And shit.
So the ARPA money that we received, so there are two big chunks of money that came in, and like county commissioners handle a lot of money. I mean, our regular budget is about $450 million, and that's from property taxes. That's from a lot of different funding sources.
Is that all the districts combined?
Yes.
Together?
Yeah.
And you guys all decide how to allocate that?
Yeah. Yep. That's. I
Awesome.
mean, we're right in the middle of budget season, and so on Monday night, I'm hosting a Let's Talk Budgets event where I have, all of these poster boards that are up, and we're doing sticky notes, or like stickies that you can show what's important to you, and there's no limit. You can put as many stickies on as many things as you want, but I'm trying to have a visual representation of what the community wants me to focus on, right? So when people engage in this activity, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to show you how hard it is to really allocate money when there's so many things that need funded, and then it's going to show you that maybe there are one piece of the pie that somebody really wants me to focus on, which a lot of it is mental health, substance misuse, and addiction, right?
Well, that's the root of a lot of problems.
Fentanyl right now.
Yeah.
I mean, mental health is the root of a ton of problems. Homeless people, all kinds of
Right.
drug abuse, all kinds
Yeah.
of things. You can cure one thing, you can hopefully, people think you can cure a ton. But
Well, I like to say that, people who are unhoused right now, it really is a visualization of mental illness, of substance misuse, of domestic violence. It's really the manifestation that we see of those things.
Yeah.
There was a guy, I live at 13th and Broadway, pretty much, 13th and Topeka. And there's this little chicken shack that faces Broadway, and it's abandoned, right? Nobody's in it. Wing Boss put their sign up, and they haven't been in it yet. And I'm like pissed. I'm like, I need some
you're
wings
like hoping
now.
like
Come
a tight
on.
little local joint will slide in.
Right, and now I just want them to mow their fucking grass,
Yeah,
right?
take care of the property.
Yeah,
Just
just
take
mow
a-
your grass.
Yeah.
But this guy, I noticed he'd been sleeping on the sidewalk, and he, this was back in November, and people who are paranoid, schizophrenics, and people who are just really, really sick, it takes you a while to build a rapport, right?
Long time.
And
They don't
even
trust.
right,
Yeah.
and a lot, and it turned out that this guy was, I didn't. This is Lacey diagnosing him, right? Because I was trying to get him into services, but I could tell that he was a paranoid schizophrenic because he was talking about how he was the smartest person in the world and they were out to get him, and he just wanted a job, but they wouldn't allow him to do it. And he didn't want to go to a shelter because he was paranoid about, you know,
any kind of organized system, basically. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I took him coffees in the morning. When it was -15 outside, I went and I picked him up and I was like, dude, you need to get in my car because it's way too cold outside. And when he sat in my car, he was like, I felt like you could just break his arm because he was so cold.
Really?
I mean, he
So
was
brittle?
cold to the fucking bone. I mean, you could just tell.
It gets
And-
shit cold, which is
Yeah. And so all he wanted was a cup of coffee. I go to the McDonald's. They didn't have any coffee. I'm like, really? Y'all don't have any coffee? Then I went to the Burger King that was 2 blocks away, and they didn't have any coffee either. All they had cold coffee. And I was like, how do you not have coffee, but you got cold coffee? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So anyway, then he didn't want to go to the shelter. He refused to go. And I was like, well, you can't come into my house because I have young children. I don't know you.
Yeah. I'm
And
just trying to help you out here, but I ain't giving you a place to live.
well, and so but it was like I couldn't just let him sleep on the street. So there's a couple of motels down on on Broadway that I tried to get him into, and they didn't have any. So they had a sister property way out on West Kellogg, and so I took him out there and I got him 2 nights, and then I called the hot team and got the hot team involved, and they were actually already involved with him.
Explain the hot team. What is that?
The
Homeless
hot team,
outreach.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
the homeless
Is it-
outreach team.
Oh, okay.
But Nate Schwedal and his folks are great, but the city only funds that program Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and we know,
Yeah, and those people are still homeless, so on those other times.
right,
Well, the problems are after 5. Though.
right,
Okay, like
Yeah,
And on weekends.
Yeah,
Yes.
and on weekends.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's part of it with the shelters too. Is the shelters need you to check in and stay there at like 7 or 8. You know what I mean? Like,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
you got to go in there and you got to catch the window.
Well, this gentleman ended up dying in the cold.
Oh, this year?
He died in the cold snap. Yeah,
Oh, that sucks.
because he
After he got it.
and 4 other people died in the same week because it was just so cold.
Yeah.
And that was so heartbreaking because, I tried to get him into services, tried to get him in, because the problem is a lot of these people need medication, but they can't get in to see a provider. And then when they do see the provider, getting their medication filled and then
Paid for.
and then
And then regularly filled. I mean,
Yeah.
they keep going back and filling it. all the
right. And then you have problems with medication being stolen or not taken correctly or being sold, right? Some people
Yeah,
sell
straight up.
medication
Just straight up.
time. For
so
food. For any.
Right.
For, I mean,
Right.
poor
Yeah.
bastard, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So
this-
just the very real problems of what and this poor guy, he got a trespassing charge, right? So he got picked up because he was trespassing on someone's property because he didn't have anywhere to go and he was just trying to sleep. And so then he gets this trespassing charge. Well, then he goes to jail and then he gets a court date and then they where do they send his summons to appear?
yeah,
He doesn't have an address. So then he gets a failure to appear.
So now he's got a warrant out.
So then he has a warrant, and then he gets picked up again, and now all these fees are just building
tacking
up,
on.
and
And it's a waste of the city's money too. They-
it is such a it's a waste of the county money too,
yeah,
because
it's a waste of the cops' money. Everything.
Exactly.
It's a waste of every fucking body's time.
because for every $1 that you spend on prevention services, you get $4 in return. Now, as a business owner, wouldn't you think that that's a smart investment?
Yeah,
It's
preventative maintenance in anything is always the best
Right.
return. Always,
Right. And we have for so many years just not funded those kinds of things because it's a revolving door. You have to maintain the systems, right? Because you got to do everyday kind of stuff. But what I've found with county government, there is no innovation. There are no people looking at ways to improve the system. There are no people that are actively doing it every single day because the people are too busy maintaining the system because
Yeah.
we don't have enough employees to do it, and those directors that are supposed to be doing this kind of big picture type thinking are too busy. Like we have the woman who runs ComCare right now, Jen Wilson. She's incredible, and I believe that she can make really great suggestions to change things, but she's seeing patients, right? She's fulfilling gaps because her workforce is so short-staffed. And so
somebody's running the place is seeing patients.
yeah, I mean, she doesn't have a choice, right? I mean, because
that's tough.
And so there are models around the country. Like, I'm reading a book. It's called Lean Behavioral Health. It's the King County Hospital in New York, their system. It's a government-run hospital, but they take the Toyota manufacturing model, which is it's lean, Six Sigma, right? Like making sure that you have parts within the right way to pick the parts, right? That's one method of lean, but the other method is bottom up mentality. The people who are doing the work should make the suggestions because they're the ones who can operate. It's a culture shift, right? Instead of everybody thinks that government is like this, right? Here's elected officials up top, and here's everybody down below. But in reality, the government is this. This is the hierarchy of government with all of the people and all. Like, you guys are my boss. Whether I'm actually your representative or not, you guys are my boss because I do make decisions on behalf of every single person in Sedgwick County.
So I believe that coming from you. Okay, all right. But there are a lot of people that just take the salary and really try to keep a status quo.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, me and you tell this story every couple of years about the pot roast in the pot. You know what I mean? Like, to where this lady was chopping off the end of her pot roast, and was finally asked by her daughter, "Why do you do that?" And she goes, "Well, my mom always did it that way. I just do it because that's the way it's always been done."
That's a lot of
and then she calls her mom, and she goes, "Mom, why do I cut the end off my pot roast?" And she goes, "Well, back in the day, my pan was only this big. I had to cut the end off."
She was cutting it just to make it
to fit, right?
She just thought that was the way it was. She thought that's how you did
I worked for the water department for 15 years here in the city of Wichita, and my dad worked for Public Works and retired from them. And it was always that shit. This is the way we've always done it.
There's a mentality of that.
I'm like, dude, fuck the way we've always done it. Like, this
What's
is
gonna make it better?
This is dangerous. This is easier. Buy this. It makes it easier and safer. Like, fuck the way we've always done it.
But I've seen you come under fire many times for not getting along with your peer group in this political world, and I think that if you're going a whole different way, you're not trying to keep things the status quo that never worked.
Right. We're spending so much money to just maintain a system. I like to say we're spending so much money to keep that revolving door spinning on the axis in which it spins, right? We're just greasing it.
Yeah.
And that's all it's doing. I mean, we got people going, our recidivism rate, we got people that are going back in and out of jail. Today, if somebody gets out of jail, 60% of those people will be back in jail in 2 years. 60%.
That's a lot.
So what we
a
have
drain on the system,
it is, and nobody's getting better, right? Nobody's getting better. Our system is completely taxed. I mean, we're still using paper. If you were to go and enroll in ComCare, my dad is enrolled in the adult ComCare, and my daughter is enrolled in the children's ComCare. So I have, experience as a commissioner, and I have personal experience from my family.
Yeah,
and you got paperwork, didn't you?
Yeah.
They gave you paperwork.
I still get paperwork. I still get shit mailed to me when open enrollment comes.
And then they won't give you an appointment until you get all your paperwork in. And I'm just like, okay. And then they give you, multiple stacks of paper. And I'm like, why are we still filling out paper forms?
Streamlined.
Yeah. So, yes. And, what I get is a lot of people saying, well, that's the state and that's the federal government. And these are the regulations. And everybody blames it on a different level of government instead of saying, okay, here's what can fix it. And here's how we should get to that point. Yeah. Like, I'm a commissioner who allocates millions and millions and millions of dollars. Let's start allocating money towards programs that will make it more efficient for staff staff to do their job? Because if we have a staff shortage, why are we going to keep making them do the same shit?
Yeah,
can we stop Jim from making these pamphlets? I mean, we got 4 guys working their ass off on these pamphlets. Can we get them off? Can we get Jim, Steve, and Rachel a break from putting these motherfuckers together?
We can have one IT guy.
And we got probably 40 motherfuckers licking and mailing these big ass fucking envelopes and shit out. Can we stop? Can we just stop with that shit? I mean, we're wasting more money at ComCare probably on just trying to get people to fill out the damn paper.
But it's a thing, it's like you have to try to take people from where they are to where we need them to be.
Right.
And the old buddy boy system is not interested in doing it.
No, because it works for them.
They're not developers.
Yeah, because a little bit of the problem is that you always got to doubt. If you start doing things easier, people start losing jobs. Because there's somebody down there filing that shit somewhere that ain't gonna have to do that shit no more.
Right.
So that's really what the scare is when people start integrating shit. They don't want to 8 people to get fucking fired.
But that it's the mentality, it's the culture that has to shift, because if we were able to save money and put it into other programs, new jobs could be created.
Exactly. So we'd have something for those people to do.
Right. So I've been working to this jail and the people that are in the jail and how many people keep coming in and out of the jail. 70% of people who are in our jail right now have an addiction. 30% of people have
nonviolent offenders are all
just addicted.
Just addicted in whatever way. And then 30% have a diagnosed mental illness. And then when you take those two together, 50% of those two groups have a co-occurring condition, which means it's difficult to treat. And so let's start incorporating things like color on the walls instead of cinder block
making
beige.
those people feel like they're
So back in the 90s, senior living. Senior living was all about, cinder block walls, tile floors, fluorescent institution.
Yeah, they look like facilities instead of homes.
And then, in the 90s, it kind of started to shift to assisted living. You had warm colors on the walls. You had carpet. You
couches
had lamps, couches, right?
Shit, yeah. Little TV watching areas and stuff.
Yeah, we have got to change the mental health system to be more like how the senior living world shifted to one of comfort, shifted to one of dignity, right? I mean, when my dad went into ComCare, we had to go through a metal detector. He had a knife on him. It didn't even detect it, right? And then they asked him for we're in this big open room, and they're like, "Oh, how much money do you make a year?" All sorts of financial information, and I'm just like, where's the dignity in that? And then we go. And it was just very sterile, and it just didn't seem like a very welcoming place. So, that
by design, kind of. That's the sad thing. It's like that, so people have a hard time getting that coverage.
Right. Well, and I know that to have a mental health facility, you have to have a lot of different regulations of, the chairs that are there, and we have to make sure that people don't harm themselves, and so there are certain ways, but we can design things with color. So going back to the jail, so we have a mural that's going on the wall. Paint and nature scenes and those kinds of color on walls in the jail are designed and proven to reduce anxiety, violence, and depression. Not only for the inmates that are in the jail, but for the deputies who work in the jail. Quick story is
those
when
guys are jacked up usually.
Well, when I went in to go, kind of see the space that we're going to put this mural, the deputy was pissed. Like he was not in a good mood. And I don't know that it was because of me. It was a Friday afternoon, and he was like ready to go. He's been working at the jail for 22 years. Like he was like, dude, I'm out. Shitty week. He had a shitty week. Yeah. So we go on the elevator, and he's like pushing the button, and he's all pissed off. And I'm like, God damn, this guy. I'm like thinking to myself, damn, what did I do to piss him off, And, he's like, it's just been a shitty week. I'm ready to go home. And it was like Friday afternoon, right? So we get to the spot where the mural is going to be, which is right across from the health clinic at the jail. And I just looked at him and I was like, well, what do you want to see on the wall? And his attitude completely shifted. because he was then able to visualize something that he would want to see on
Every
the
day.
wall. That even it's something as simple as that.
Just give him perspective.
And it was for him too, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I want his ideas,
It's
right?
that bottom up mentality.
Well, and
The
it probably made him.
workers need to be.
Well, it even probably made him realize, oh, this is why they're doing this for this. Like he probably was like, they're doing this fucking shit. I could use a fucking razor painting this fucking mural.
Giving
like,
some artists a bunch of money to do whatever they want.
People think them get on some weird shit, get on some weird bitching about shit at work, and then they're like, oh, okay.
They don't ask questions; they assume.
Yeah.
Right, but in the grand scheme of things, this mural is going to cover 2 big walls. I think it was about $4,000, and when you're talking millions of dollars, I had to get used to really talking about. Well, that's only $50,000.
Yeah, we start talking about city budgets
That's
and
only
shit.
$1 million. I mean, that seems cheap. You know, I'm like, who are you, Lacey? Like, you need to remember that you liked. I mean, I'm a thrift store kind of gal. I'm a single mom. Like, I know how to stretch a dollar.
Right.
And so when somebody comes in, they're like, oh, well, that's only $50,000. I'm like, you know how much? Like, come on. That's,
$50,000 can do a lot of shit. Yeah,
It's a
$50,000
lot.
can do a lot of shit. It really can.
yeah, and it's just the thing. It's like our budgets are really just sort of funding the same things. I mean, we're rubber stamping them.
Yeah,
They get this, and
you'll always get what you've always got.
right.
Yeah, unless you don't spend it, then your budget goes down.
Well, and
That's why everybody's working to spend their budget at the end of the year.
but could we pay our employees more if we weren't rubber stamping all of the things that this is really unpopular, and I know that we love Exploration Place and we love the zoo, and I really do love those 2 programs. They're county assets, right? But EP and under Adam's leadership, this really incredible guy I think he's from Europe, London or England, and are those the same place? I think that's the same place.
We're American. We get to be pretty open about the UK. Fuck off, guys. We don't really know. We know you guys know about our shit, but we don't really give a shit.
Right.
I mean, you can drive through all of those countries in a fucking hour.
Anyway.
London is my favorite African country.
Yeah, man, me too. I've been there all the time, man. You don't even have to get on a boat.
Well, he's really great, and he is a big thinker, and he's increased memberships, and he brought that freaking drone show. That was so
awesome.
fucking cool, right? Like, he's just really innovative, and he's doing some incredible things. And EP Exploration Place is doing really well, and they do receive rubber stamped every year $2.2 million. Now, I'm not saying cut their whole budget. That's not what I'm saying. But could we cut them back to $2 million? Could $200,000 be now maybe allocated to another part of the community, say Ruby's Culture Campus? So Janice Thacker is an incredible artist who is trying to start up a whole revolution, right, with the shipping containers. She's trying to start that at 13th and 13th, in between like Hillside and Grove. She's trying to start it in between there. And that could really be a transformational kind of thing for that community, right? Because 67214 has long been divested, right, for many years, and I think up until this last census, 67214, which is the zip code that I moved into, is the poorest zip code in the state.
Wow.
Right along Broadway there, yeah.
Yes,
100%.
it is.
They haven't done anything to beautificate Broadway or 13th or 20th. They did that work at 21st a little bit. They're east of 21st Street or west of 21st Street on Broadway.
Yeah, so at Nomar, they're building Nomar, and Ariel Rodriguez and all the folks that are working with Evergreen and Empower, they've been doing a really great job there. I love that. I mean, that's really great. But quality of place should be for every single block in this town. Every single block in this town should be focused on a quality of place. We talk about that in this, Project Wichita. People tout that a lot about, mental health was number 6. It was the number 6. Well, quality of place, I think, was like number 2. But is quality of place only good enough for downtown and Douglas?
Right.
Like, we're creating a quality of place that's great there, but what about 13th and Broadway?
Yeah, what about all them random streets?
Exactly. What about South Broadway, right?
I mean, you can talk about, what about Pyatt? All
Right.
those streets over off of,
Yes.
What about hitting your problem areas?
Yeah.
Right.
What about hitting some like 17th and Grove?
Well, those should be the most
Like,
important parts. They're like
that should be maybe where
I mean,
we're
when you
trying,
look
right?
at a city like a person in the areas that are suffering the most, say if you had a problem with your foot or you had cancer, you would think you would address those spots first. And the city tends to neglect that.
Well, and why don't we take it like with our roads and our bridges? They are on a kind of like a cycle of,
100% of maintenance.
the maintenance on this road, if it's a dangerous road, we're going to pay attention to it and we're going to fix it, right?
Yeah,
But when it comes to human beings and when it comes to, people that are poor and people that are living in poverty and have been their whole lives and people that are on the streets right now, they just want to shove them behind a wall so that you can't see them.
Hide them. Yeah.
Or say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
Buddy,
You got this.
You're not even trying.
Yeah, I fucking hate that
But
shit.
if you don't have any boots,
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
or what if you don't have legs to put boots
there you
on,
go.
right?
There you go.
I mean, yeah,
I hate
it's
that shit.
it's been a real trip, this whole, trying to get people to think in a different way. I'm a visionary thinker. I'm a big picture. I am like out of the box. I'm like, do not put me in a box because I will break open the motherfucking box. Like, I just don't like to be boxed in. And when I think big in the terms of this has got to be better. Like our citizens deserve better. Government should be simple to understand, which it's not. It should be effective, which it's not. And it should cost less. And it's only
And we're all
costing
paying
us
for it.
more.
And
Right.
We're all fucking
Right.
paying for it.
Yeah. And
So when are you running for governor? We don't even have
4 more
one.
glasses of wine.
No.
Oh, it might take. This re-election campaign. I almost didn't run. I almost didn't even put my name in the hat.
So are you on ballot August 2nd? Or is
Yes, but I don't have a primary. So really, my election that counts is November 8th.
Okay, November 8th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. This year and this election cycle has proven to be a war on women, and they've even picked an
That's our Supreme Court
evangelical.
guy.
Yeah, I mean, the Republican Party has picked a conservative evangelical pastor to run against me, and it's fine because I'm not running against anyone. I am running for the things that I've accomplished, and I'm running for the opportunity to make sure ComCare gets put, the $15 million expansion, it gets put in the place that it needs to be. I'm running to make sure that we expand ICT-1, which is our co-responder model, which would have kept Cedric Lofton alive. Had that been in place, that kid would still be alive today.
Yeah, that's a sad story.
But it wasn't. I'm here to fight for those people like Cedric from that bench because we should have been doing an investigation about that. The kid died in our custody.
Yeah.
Like, that black kid died in our custody, and everybody's like, oh,
And
well,
like,
let's...
and hours, like not even that long of them
I
being
know.
in custody. Like
I know.
it wasn't like this was some days long shit. I mean, they killed this kid in like an hour and 30 minutes or some shit.
I know. I'm just finding a lot...
Dragged him over to the non-camera area.
Video's horrible.
Yeah, and the funny thing is about being in this, I was just talking to somebody today about how my first year on the commission, everybody kissed my ass. I was the shiny new penny. Everybody wanted my time.
All men, but you.
No, like staff,
Oh, okay.
staff, community members. Everybody was like, "Who the hell is she?" Right? Because nobody thought I was going to win because I was such an underdog.
Yeah.
I'm a young single mom with tattoos. I'm a bar singer, is what people would call me. I'm a bar singer.
Ooh, a bar
I'm like,
singer.
I'd rather be a fucking bar singer
That's-
sometimes.
Sounds cool to put on my resume.
Yeah,
I would totally put that on my resume.
Well, and it's crazy because when I'm a bar singer, people come up to me and they're like, "I love your voice. I love that," and it's wonderful, right? But when I use my voice from the commission bench,
They don't
it
like
is
it.
shut up, do what you're told. Like, we are not going to listen to you because you're pushing us to do things that we don't want to do, and we're uncomfortable. But I will say this, that I believe that people who get into public service, the majority of people get in and they want to do good. And I believe that a lot of people are great and good people. But when it comes down to it, the longer you're in the system, and you might have even seen it and experienced it, it's like this tree at Sedgwick County Park. It's so big, and there are so many trees like wrapped up in itself, right? And it all started as individual little trees, right? But the more it grew and the longer that they were to, within close proximity, the more they became entwined with each other. Right. And then you can't focus and you can't operate unless you think you're in the tree, right? And I know that that's a crazy analogy, but I really feel like once you're in the system,
you just go along.
Just go along. Because if you don't go along, like me, like I'm not going along with it, they completely blackball you. They make you out to be some crazy person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They'll attach some wild adjectives to you.
I've seen some of the things that have been written about you on this campaign. And it's just crazy to me because I know you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm just like...
Well, just this week, 2 days ago, Wednesday, we had, at the beginning of the meeting, you have public comment. Well, I noticed that there were a couple of people signed up, and one of them said dysfunction on the county commission or something. And I was like, oh, God, here we go. Well, it was
their topic?
It was a representative from the 85th district, Kansas State representative from the 85th district. And then the 99th district came into it. And I'm not saying their names either. Okay. It's strategic because I don't care what their names are. But they came in, and this guy from the 85th district gets up there, and he points out one frickin' word from an email that I sent to my constituents from my county email that I do every month, my newsletter, right? Each commissioner sends a newsletter each month. He points out one word from this email.
One word, not even a phrase?
He was saying that I was misleading. And so what I said was I was really advocating for people to vote because Republicans have now put the change to our Constitution on a primary ballot because they know voter turnout will be less. They know that people who aren't Democrat or Republican will think they can't vote because it's not a a primary, right? Exactly. This is a special election that's going to change the course of our Constitution, could potentially. And so they're doing it's voter suppression. And so I was trying to get this word out, when to register, who can vote, and what this constitutional amendment change could do. And I said would. Okay, I said this constitutional amendment would change.
He wanted it to be could change.
Right. Well, I said it as sort of an absolute, which let's not think that what Republicans are trying to do with changing a woman's right to choose in this state, they're trying to ban abortions in this state. Abortion is health care. I trust women to make their own decisions. I can be pro-life and pro-choice at the same time because when it comes down to it, it's about liberty and freedom, right? That's what we want. That's what every person should be able to do. And everybody was bitching so hard about my mask, my body, my choice. Well, now you want to make women women make these decisions for all sorts of reasons, and it's not for me to tell them what they can and can't do. So
you're fitting to raise that child, so sure.
Well,
it's just not
when you see the numbers of kids in foster care across the country, it should pique your intelligent meter a little bit and go, well, they've got a bunch of kids somebody's looking after. Why are we banning making people create more that they don't want?
Well, exactly. And so this guy comes in, these two representatives come in, and they talk about how I have misled voters, and I have put out misinformation from my my tax-funded newsletter, it's wrong what I did, and I misled people. And this was a newsletter that I sent out in April. They literally have nothing on me, and they're nitpicking everything I do. I'm literally under a microscope.
If you're fucking coming at me with one word of an email, get the fuck out of here. You're wasting this commission's time on our what we're trying to do here. We're trying to have a meeting, and we're talking about this shit.
The meeting was 2 hours long, and 50% of the meeting was talking about me. They fucking ambushed me. Yeah. And so
we're trying to get you to slip so that you don't get reelected.
Right. And so the 85th guy gets up there. Then the 99th representative gets up there, and while she's speaking, he's taunting me from the audience. He's motioning with his hands, "You're going down, you're wrong," and he's like doing all these hand gestures and shit, and I'm just like,
What the hell?
Does anybody not see this? Like,
You
why?
guys don't have like
why
a
are
bailiff sitting around
This shit's
somewhere?
allowed. We don't have a
Like,
security guard.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
This shit wouldn't go down at the bar that I sing at. You fucks.
Yeah, we got security there.
I'm just going to tell you,
Take care of people.
This is a city meeting, and this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, and so then the my colleagues, they essentially want to force me to send out a new newsletter, saying the right thing now.
Oh, like taking it back.
So what they
Change the one word.
did, so what they did
Exit out.
was they sent out the ballot information, the wording that's on the ballot for the constitutional amendment, written by the Secretary of State and the Kansas legislature, that is so super confusing. It is so hard to understand. It is meant to confuse and trick voters so that I've been in a voting booth before where there's a ballot measure and I'm just like, what does this mean? I don't even know.
I don't know
like,
which box it
it's
is.
not always
right?
clear.
Is this for or against? Like, I don't know. And so they're doing it deliberately to trick people. And so I'm just trying to like educate people around, here's what this vote means and here's what this vote means, right? So they have voted. We have voted to send out the constitutional amendment ballot language to our newsletter list. They sent it like it was coming from me. They sent it in my name like it was coming from me. We
Instead of the office.
agreed that it was going to come from the county,
Yeah,
not
so
from
it
me.
looked like an official letter instead of just you
Right.
campaigning or whatever.
And then today,
So are the rest of the county commissioners against you too? Sounds like a little bit.
well,
I mean,
so
allegedly.
then today, so you know what I did? I doubled down because they asked me to send out a change. I changed the term would to could, and then I wrote some other stuff. And I was like,
and here's what
I
else
said,
And-
this could and probably will end the right to safe and secure abortions in Kansas. And I wrote something else, but they wouldn't send it out.
Really?
They
you got
told me,
filtered?
yes,
Yeah,
they
that
told me
sucks.
that it didn't
Censored.
go against, or it didn't go with the vote at the commission, and they weren't going to send it out.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
That's your voted officials getting shut down in these.
Yup.
Right.
So
Yeah.
see how crooked that
some
shit is.
censorship right there.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, well, you're not going to silence me. So I made a post about it. I made a TikTok about what happened Wednesday, and it's blowing up. I mean, and the whole point of it is to educate people about, you're not voting no because there's no yes or no on the ballot.
No, it's not.
It's a vote against. And they
Yeah.
make it sound like it's tricky because you're going to vote against the value them both. You're going to vote against women and babies, right?
Yeah.
You're going to vote against it.
Yeah.
But really you're voting against them
Yeah, but
them trying to ban it.
banning it.
They're going to.
Yeah.
They're-
You think,
if
you think it'll pass?
No, I don't. I'm going to say no because
No,
I
it
want
doesn't.
to say no.
No, me too.
I'll
be voting. I hope everybody else gets out there and vote.
Yeah.
Tell them to go
Get
vote.
out. And you can register. I don't know when this is going to air, but
So hopefully by the first of next week.
okay,
Monday.
so
Monday-ish.
July 12th is the last day to register to vote. And you can vote in person 2 weeks before August 2nd.
Yep.
August 2nd is the last day to vote, but you can vote
Yeah, you can
up
pre-vote.
until that.
They
Yeah.
do the pre-voting
Yeah.
at all your
Yeah.
locations.
Yeah.
Yep. And they have mail. Do they do the mail-in for this
Yep.
too? Yeah, as well.
Yep.
Because I get all the shit. I've been voting since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was always interested in government when I was a kid, so I've been voting in local elections forever.
So before we wrap up, tell us how to support you. Tell us how to donate. Tell us.
Yeah.
How many people in your district to get out and vote for you again? Correct? Or is it the whole city?
Yeah, well, so District 4 is roughly around, I think it was 107,000 people. Maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it's 104,000 people. It's roughly under 110,000 people for each district.
Okay, I got you.
And so, yeah, so you can support me. This is a grassroots campaign. This is $25, $50 donations at a time. I've had $5 donations.
Dude, anything helps.
I've had 10. I mean, the max dollar donation you can give me is $500, but the people that I know and the people that I hang out with donate $25 to $30 a piece.
Yeah.
Right. And
It goes a long way.
right, it really does, and it really adds up. And I made a post, and I had 50 donations yesterday.
Nice.
alone
Good.
because
Well, we'll start as soon as this show comes out. We'll all run some clips together, and
I appreciate
you
that.
can share and post them. Anything you want to send us to, we'll share.
Yeah.
I share it.
Yeah.
I'm
I appreciate
shameless. I don't give. A
Yeah.
I click like and share. I wish y'all would.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a normal person, right? I'm a normal person who stepped in to run for office because I really want to make a change
I'd like to see you reelected.
and a better place for my kids, right? Our kids deserve a different government. Our kids deserve leaders who really
Well,
care.
we need to start shifting our focus into thinking as now. I mean, you can say, just like we've said, the common thing of this is let's not do shit like we used to do.
Right.
Let's start making
Yeah.
decisions for 2022.
Right.
I mean, we shouldn't be still training kids and using money like it's 1987. It's not.
Right.
I mean, there's some shit when you start looking at budgets. There's some shit that's been just signed off on for.
Well, yeah, and we still had the county still had a policy that like women couldn't wear pants. It was written in a policy, and I'm like,
Yeah, when you go
What?
searching through government, it's like, okay, really? This?
Like-
and then you had a bunch of motherfuckers who was like, yep, we're going to sign that in. Like, you convinced a bunch.
Yep,
It wasn't
no
just
pants.
one fucking guy.
Right.
Like, you convinced a bunch of motherfuckers to go along with that shit.
I love
Yeah.
pantsless women, so there you go.
There it is. Perfect.
well, my website is laceycruse.com. Make sure to spell it right because you'll get a stripper if you don't. Like LACYCRUZ is a stripper. LACEYCRUSE is the right
So
one.
the E's are very important in this.
Right. Like
The E's are very important in this. I mean, you know, it depends on your taste. Maybe give the other website a try. But we really appreciate you coming out. And like I said, if you got anything we can do to help, I mean, we have a small platform, but we're glad you came on. So
I
and
appreciate
we'll
you
definitely
guys.
like and share and get your name out there to get you some votes. 'Cause
Thank you.
people like you is what we need. People that give a shit.
I
I
appreciate
mean,
that.
unfortunately, that's what we need is people that actually give a shit.
Some real people.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
So, all right, until next time,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you, everybody. Tune in, like, and subscribe, please.
Yep.
Bye.
Is it a podcast? Is it a show? Tell your nostrils, they don't even know.